Right, what's happening, people, and welcome back to the Joey Knight podcast. Now, after picking up back-to-back wins against the likes of Luton Town and AFC Wimbledon, respectively, Chelsea can finally go into a match at Stamford Bridge with real momentum. And here to help me discuss the match against Nottingham Forest, break down, give our previews, and ultimately give his starting 11 pick is fan favourite of the channel, Josh Aveste. The link to Josh's channel is in the description below. We'll start off, Josh. It's a lovely kit you got on there.
I'm gutted, actually, that you haven't got yours. I'm loving it. This badge, basically, we were having a bit of a joke yesterday that you could almost put someone's eye out with this badge if the light catches it. But, mate, this is the best kit that we've had in years. And I was thinking, do I need to buy 10 of these? Because it's going to be a collector's item.
Yeah, it's my favourite one since the year after we won the Champions League in 2012. So that 2013 kit, that was a thing of beauty and all. Had the gold on it. Really liked it. But I like this kit. And like you say, before we get the old Infinite Athlete sponsorship on there, it's going to become a bit of a collector's item. It's going to be one of them things in 20 years' time when we go, oh, do you remember that season Chelsea won the league without a sponsor on the kit? Speaking of what we're wearing, tell us about the T-shirt I've got on.
Yeah, so this is a T-shirt from an amazing brand called Cheap Life, and it's from my clothing store. You're representing. Thank you for representing it. It looks good on you. It fits you perfectly. Yeah. So yeah, it's from my clothing store, Aveste, the home of independent streetwear. We've got 30 independent brands on there right now. And you're supporting the channel and you're featuring it and you're basically going to be the new model.
Sit, mate. Well, do you know what? I always knew that was a career path that I might go down. Saturday's opponents, Nottingham Forest. They are a team that last season just about sort of survived relegation. They had a big win against Arsenal and actually they performed quite well against some of the bigger teams last season. They pulled off wins against the likes of Arsenal and Liverpool as well as Brighton, who were high-flying last season. I also got draws against Chelsea at the City Ground, a match that I was in attendance for. Picked up a draw against Man City as well at home. So they've got some good form against the bigger teams, but very much opposition that if we are going to do this season, what I believe we can do should be opposition that we should be beating. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. Look, it's great to have them back in the Premier League. They are a historic club, obviously European champions. So it's good to have them back in the Premier League. They are very much going to be at the bottom, I feel, of the Premier League this season. I think their manager, Steve Cooper, is a really, really good manager. I respect him a lot. He did some great things with the England youth setup as well. So we've got to credit him. In fact, a lot of our players, mate, will know him very, very well. So, yeah, I'm excited to see how we end up playing with them. It's nice to have another home game, another game that I'm going to, so it'd be really good to sort of see it again.
When you look at the run of fixtures we've got, we're coming in off the back of games against the likes of Luton, AFC Wimbledon, and then 3 out of our next 4 after this include the likes of Bournemouth, Burnley, Fulham, all teams that pose significant threats respectively, but are teams again that I do feel like we should be getting the wins over. This is slap bang in the middle of that fixture list and therefore is a really, really important game, like anyone is in the league, for us to carry on building momentum, because we know that when we stretch into the month of October, you look and we've got some really, really hard games. But if we can continue to pick up points, build momentum, get wins in these games, then those games don't become less hard, but become games that we'd go into with probably a better mindset and more optimism around it. So again, I think every game is, so it's almost a bit lazy to say this, but it's a must-win game against Nottingham Forest, isn't it?
Yeah, you've got to be beating teams like this. When we're saying they should finish, 14th, 15th, 16th this year, they'll probably just beat relegation. We've got to be doing teams like that at home. And we've got to make Stamford Bridge a bit of a fortress. I remember all those years that we've had where Stamford Bridge was unbeaten. We didn't even really get draws at Stamford Bridge. We just destroyed teams. Any team that came over to the bridge. So yeah, we've got to be beating these guys. And look, it's no disservice to them. I mean, they've got a very good squad. And in fact, there are a lot of players that some big clubs want. Obviously, we're looking at Johnson and a host of other teams are looking at him as well. So, yeah, they've got players that, can cause damage. So we've got to watch them.
I think one thing that will massively go in Nottingham Forest's favour is last year it was very much thrown together. This year, they'll have a lot more stability. A lot of those players will have been able to bond, gel together, spend time together and really get to know each other. And have that understanding of how to play together. Also, they'll be on a high of staying up last season and coming into this season, not so much believing, but actually accepting that, okay, we are a Premier League outfit now. And you know what? When I look at Nottingham Forest, like you say, I think when you were sort of speaking about 15th, 14th, 13th, that sort of position, I'd put them around that ballpark because I do think there's definitely 3 worse teams in the league than them this season. But to go back onto it, like I said, if we're going to compete, if we're going to do what I believe we can do this season, it has to be a game that we're winning. So what is the 11 for you to go and win this game against Nottingham Forest?
I think when we're looking at the 11, Poch, obviously, for me, isn't tweaking things too much at the moment, is he? Like, I think when you look at the team sheet that he's put out, he's going with that 4-5 at the back. We keep arguing about whether it is a 4 or a 5, but he's going for that sort of system. And I think he's actually going to stick relatively similar to the team that faced Luton, to be honest with you. So look, let's go through it very quickly, and I want to see what you think. Let's do it by sort of like defence, midfield and attack, and we'll see what we think of it. So I'm going to go for Sanchez in goal. I'm going to go Gusto at right back, Disasi, Thiago and Cole. I think that's our back four. What do you think about that?
That's a 4, is it, yeah?
Well, look, Chilwell's in my team, but Chilwell isn't playing in a left-back position. Traditionally, when you play a back five, what would happen with Chilwell is he'd be very far advanced and very wide. Actually, against Luton, what we saw is that he was just in front of Colwell in the defensive position, and then obviously when he was attacking, then obviously he'd push high and wide. So I think it'll end up being something similar like that. But in terms of the way that Poch classes it, Chilwell is the left winger.
Yeah, I think, look, it's fair enough, and I completely agree with that. I think it's good. One thing I would say is I know he was brought in for relatively, high money, but when I look at the performances of Disasi so far, I do think a little bit, why is Levi Colwell being played slightly out of position at your expense? Because we know that in that right centre-back position, Thiago Silva is more than equipped to play there. So that's the only thing I would think is Levi Colwell being pushed slightly out of position at your expense? And although we've been massively impressed by Levi Colwell, who's to say there's not another level he could go to if he was started in his preferred left centre-back role? But once again, and I've said it time and time again, Mauricio Pochettino is a man who knows a lot more about football than I do. So if that's his choice, then I'd be happy enough to go with it.
Yeah, I think with the defenders, Badiashile coming back would be really an interesting one. Like, who does he replace? Because I think Badiashile had such a good end of the season last year, and I feel that he was so underrated. Every time he played, he never put a foot wrong. He was very, very good. And when he's fit and ready to go, I think he's going to be pushing two players. I think he'll be pushing Disasi, and I think he'll be pushing Thiago Silva, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Because Colwell, for me, and we agree, he started the season so well. He's probably going to be starting most games.
He's undroppable for me.
And it's interesting because Badiashile and Colwell were actually the most similar in terms of the way they played. They're both left-sided, that sort of thing. So I could see a situation where Badiashile comes back, has a couple of good games, and he displaces someone like Disasi, who's coming to the league for the first time, maybe looking a bit error-prone at the moment. We're not quite sure if he's, up to standard. Obviously, he'll get better and better. So it'll be interesting to see what goes on with those guys. But what do you think? Would you change that back four?
If it was my personal pick, again, I would probably go Melo Gusto, Thiago Silva, Levi Colwell, and I would say Ben Chilwell, because I'm just saying, if it was a back four, I'm looking at Ben Chilwell left back. But yeah, I wouldn't massively argue with it. I wouldn't. I will obviously give my final thoughts, as I always do, right before the game, and I'll pick my team. But if that's the team you're going with, very, very happy with that. Let's have a look at the midfield now then.
I'm not twisting on the midfield. I'm going to go Caicedo, Enzo and Gallagher. I thought they all played very well against Luton. I liked that Gallagher was doing this. They're calling this role the Secundo Volante, and any Football Manager fans out there will know that role because we all play that role because it's very exciting. But basically, he's disrupting play, he's making tackles, but he isn't the last line of defence. And I think that's where he went wrong in the start of the season, and he had to because we didn't really have any other options. He was played in the deeper role in midfield, and it wasn't the tackling that he missed out on. It was more like the ball distribution and ball retention. And Caicedo's slightly better at that, put him there at the base of midfield. Gallagher then is the slightly more defensive option. Yeah. And then Enzo is the one that sort of like bombs on and pushes up. But then Gallagher is also arriving late in the box. I love that. So I think all three of those complement each other very well. Would you mix it up at all?
Do you know what? I actually wouldn't. I wouldn't, no. I think that looking at how Mauricio Pochettino's playing, and it's telling that every opportunity he's had to pick Gallagher, he's always picked Gallagher. So it's clearly a player that he massively rates and thinks can do a very good job for him in that system, follow his instructions very well and whatnot. So I wouldn't go against it. I wouldn't go against it at all. And I think now that, we spent a long time hearing of rumours about Gallagher possibly departing, I think that would raise serious questions of Todd Boehly and the ownership of Chelsea, being that he seems to be Mauricio Pochettino's man in that role. So I don't see it changing anytime too soon, and I would stick with that. What about your front line?
So Chilwell, as we've said, is going to be the effective left winger. Like we agree that he isn't necessarily suited per se to be a left winger, but he's going to end up in that role. You can't then drop any of the other two. They've probably been one of our better players. So Sterling's on the right, Jackson's through the middle. And we're expecting, 2 goals each from them, I think.
I think it's a pretty perfect lineup. And you know what? If we could get 1 goal each, I'd be very happy with that. I think that, again, you look at that lineup, you look at our performances of recent, and this is a match that is massively important to carry on this momentum, because you can't have, scattered results if we are looking to compete for those top 4 places. And when you look at the likes of other teams around us, I think that top 4 places will be up for grabs this season. Some teams have started well and they may well drop off. Some teams have took a little bit of a while to get going. But in regards to my team, Chelsea, this is a match we need to see us win. Are you backing us to win this match?
Yeah, I'm backing us. I think if we're looking at predictions now, it's always tough with Forest because I feel that they can come to the ground and sort of like disrupt things with the way they play. Obviously, they play a back 5 as well, whether we play a 4 or a 5. And so sometimes when you're matching up systems like that, it can be quite effective. And they've got pace and like guile up front, which I actually respect. Like I think Awani up front for them is actually very good. I think he scored a goal against us last season. I have to look that up. But yeah, he's a very good player. Brennan Johnson obviously is a player that a lot of people want. So they've got some potency up front that we need to be careful of. So with that in mind, I'm going to give them a goal, but I'm going to go 3-1.
I thought you were going to agree with what I think. For some reason, I'd like to be more optimistic than this, but my head's just telling me 2-1 win to Chelsea, but never in massive jeopardy. So we'd very much like to know your lot's thoughts on this game. How do you see us lining up against Nottingham Forest? What sort of threat do you think that Nottingham Forest pose upon this Chelsea side? And ultimately, what are your score predictions? Let us know in the comments. Subscribe to Josh's page, link in the description. And if you're not already, what you're doing, make sure you're subscribed to this page because the content is ramping up. We're getting bigger and better, and we're growing consistently as a channel, which I thank you lot very much for. You've been a key part in helping this channel grow, and who knows, maybe even by the time this video comes out, we might be at that 50k mark. I don't know about that. It might be a bit speculative, but you can only live and hope. I will see you lot in the next video.